Доброго дня, вітаю.
Good afternoon. We greet everyone who joined us today. And we greet everyone who are here at Ukraine Crisis Media Center. And together with the project Decentralization is Good, we welcome our guests. We are going to speak about healthcare reform and decentralization. How will the United Communities get in the process of creating hospital districts? So today I'm glad to greet Pavlo Kovtonyuk, Deputy Minister of Healthcare, Юрій Стальниченко, Secretary of Menськ City Council, Center of the Menськ United Territorial Community, Олександр Мисник, Chairman of the Menськ District Council. So we don't have much time, that's why we'll have such an agenda. Pavlo, you will be given 5 or 7 minutes in order to inform and update us about the creation of districts and everything that is connected with it. And then we will have questions through social media and email, and then we will have also time for questions of the journalists who are here. So if you don't mind, Pavlo, you are given the floor. Good afternoon. Hospital districts and united communities. From one side, two of these things are not directly interrelated because in Ukraine today, united communities, in the majority, they are small in size. And they provide primary health care, and the hospital districts, this is about hospitals. They are created in order to organize better service at the secondary level. So this is in hospital treatment and more comprehensive technologies. So the residents of united communities, they are treated not only by family doctors, but they are also treated in hospitals. That's why this is the infrastructure of the secondary level. So hospital districts in Ukraine are formed based on decisions taken on site. So this process should include a lot of local specificities. And for this, we have an instrument that is called Hospital Council. So the representatives of communities gather, those who are owners of these hospitals that are in the district, and their joint task is to analyze the status of and to provide a joint plan how they will develop in order to provide full scope of services at a secondary level for people of the hospital districts and to do it efficiently. So to have properly established and operated equipment and proper medical personnel. The task of creation of hospital districts, it is simple. We should get closer to people to provide services that are far away from them in the oblast center. So this is cardiosurgery, neurosurgery, dialysis. So people spend 4 to 5 hours to get to these services, and now we want these services to be provided by base hospitals at the secondary level that are in the hospital district. So I visited Mykolaiv Oblast, I was in Bashtanka and Novy Buz, and dialysis is present there, and people, they do not travel to Mykolaiv to get it. And in Dnipropetrovsk region, they formed the hospital districts, and in Mykolaiv they still didn't. And also there is a network to buy specialized equipment to carry out operations, heart surgery, and they buy stents. And the candidates for getting such equipment are not only oblasts, but Pavlograd, Kryvyi Rih, for example. So these are the centers of hospital districts, and they have this equipment according to the governmental program. And the same about roads. Now the Ministry of Infrastructure, we cooperate with them in the project that is called the Roads to Medical Institutions, and we take we take hospital districts and the main hospitals there, and the roads are created to get to these hospitals. So communities should identify in what way they will organize the network, and those limited resources that are in the country, they should be invested in infrastructure, they should be allocated wisely. So we should understand what hospitals we will develop at first level, at second level, also hospices, what roads are of priority, and this will contribute to the plan of hospital districts, and this will be for investment, and the services thus will be provided to hospital districts. This is the logic. So we have 24 oblasts that should create hospital district. 16 did it, and this was adopted by the cabinet of ministers, and the 17th now is in coordination with the central bodies of executive power. And also we have 7 oblasts that didn't form hospital districts. Out of them, 3 are going to submit their projects, and about 4 they have serious discussions. There are some problematic issues. This is the Zakarpatsky region, Lvivska region, and Mykolaievska and Odessa Oblast. And now we continue discussions about them, and in others the process is ongoing in a right way. So the process of creating of hospital districts, there is no some sort of deadline. We want to make it quick. We want that this process ended this year, but there is no financial loss or other type of punishment if you didn't do it. So if you don't form the hospital districts, that these oblasts won't be able to submit the request for the development of the oblast and won't get proper funding. That's why I told you about the equipment and the roads. So investment programs will be planned based on hospital districts. So you outlined the overall situation in the country, but we are speaking about creation of hospital districts and creation and forming of hospital councils in the territorial community. At the regional level, there are some issues. That's why we invited the representatives of United Communities and city councils in order to show the example of the territorial community. Yuri, tell us, please, about the situation on site and how these issues can be resolved and how it can be implemented in the whole country. First, thank you for being today with us. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with the Deputy Minister. I represent young territorial community that got united. We held the session on the 30th of May for the first time. Now we operate efficiently. The issue of decentralization and medical decentralization, it was discussed for 2 years, and on the example of our Chernigivsk Oblast, our oblast is unique in Ukraine. And we had some aspects, some problems that differ in some way. They will be unique in Ukraine, and maybe reform can be somehow adjusted. So we have a third scope of lands, but we have less population. We have 33 people per square meter in our oblast compared with Lviv Oblast, where they have 160 people. And according to the provision of the Cabinet of Ministers, we formed 4 hospital districts, and one of these districts, identified as Northern District with the center, is not identified, and people in our community and 4 adjacent regions, they have some questions. First, the medical district should be formed for 200,000 people, but taking into account the number of population in Chernigivщина, this can be really great distance to hospital district. And if the center of the hospital district is Krukivka town, from Grimiach town to Krukivka is 157 kilometers. This is not 60 minutes to hospital districts, and this is not, it doesn't meet other requirements. So please, could you explain, so tell us about the situation you face. So the territory of your community, it has its regional hospital, and there is one more hospital. So the center of hospital district may be Krukivka town, that has about 13,000 people, and Melnik town that also have about 12,200 people. So when we worked on the projects of hospital districts, there was an option that in Chernigivщина they planned 7 hospital districts, and with the centers, Krukivka town as the center, and the Melnik town with its own district, and the distance between these towns is 30 kilometers. So as I understand, the members of your territorial community, they believe that the base hospital should be at Melnik, and Krukivka believes that they should have this. So first, speaking about infrastructure, through Melnik, 89 buses go that will unite all settlements that were in the hospital district, and through Krukivka 19 buses go through. So if in what way will it change if the infrastructure changes? So transporters are interested to have a flow of passengers, and if there is no, how can they provide it? And from other side, the Melnik road, it is a national importance road, and in winter time the quality is better. If we go from Novgorod-Siversky to Krukivka, you should choose whether Melnik or Sosnitsy to and Skorab and or to travel. And if the road is bad, so there will be delays. And the question that people have in regions of Chernigivщина, whether it is possible to have such an option, to have hospital Melnik and Krukivka hospital districts, and if it is impossible, how to resolve the issue of urgent bringing of patients to the hospital, and in what way can the ministry help to resolve these issues? Yuri, I have only one question based on what we heard at the beginning of our discussion, and who will be the center should be decided by hospital councils. Have you started to form these hospital councils? Did you form this? It is being formed now in Chernigivщina. Pavlo, please comment on this. I understand the importance of each of the aspects, but We are working on the national level, and after our today's discussion, we want to elaborate some algorithms and recommendations how to act in the situation, because the situation is not unique in the country.
It's not a unique situation. This is the issue which is quite often raised and which is similar for many regions in Ukraine. And this is the issue which should be discussed in the hospital council. This is the body whose mission is to make solution about the commercial aspects or economic issues based on calculations, logistics, analysis of situations. So it's your task with your territory, with knowing your roots, knowing the routes which your patients use, having all the information about doctors, about physicians that you have, you should find the solution, how to provide efficient medical services. The hospital district does not take into account how long the capital is, the capital city is. Our objective is to decide in what geographical point in your district, in your territory, you can put equipment, diagnostic equipment, where the expert will go. And in order to do this, you should provide continuous flow of patients. Okay, now I would like to ask the question to Mr. Alexander and ask a question. What is your vision of the same issue, and ask what is the process of hospital council. I would like to start from the hospital districts. The deputy minister mentioned that the hospital districts should be formed from the bottom, from the ground level. But actually it was not like this. The government made this decision. But when immediately after in the statement about formation of hospital districts by the government, we immediately started formation of the hospital districts. We involved the academics, we involved the Academy of Medical Sciences, and Mr. and Professor Shkrabanets suggested that in Chernihiv there should be 120,000 residents per each hospital district. In this case, there would be 7 hospital districts. So the first step was that that districts which were formed, 7 hospital districts, they were even published on the ministry website. But after a week, the situation changed, and the fourth, and then, instead of 7 hospital districts, the 3 were cancelled, and the 4th was called Karyukivsky Hospital District. People strongly objected. 61% of residents of our Karyukivka hospital district opposed this and changed the name for Northern Hospital District, and this will be Hospital Council, which will then create the Northern Hospital District, and maybe we'll choose MENA for this. The Hospital Council, in line with the regulations, the Hospital Council establishment should be initiated by the Oblast State Administration, by the regional state administration. Then we have a question, who should be members of the Hospital Council? Either medical experts or the administrators of the hospitals, the local medical institutions. Then when the center will be created, how transfer of money will happen? Now we have our Hospital Council at the initial stage of the council establishment. Pavlo, could you comment? Each Hospital Council should be initiated by the regional state administration, by healthcare department of the region state administration. Then the Hospital Council will continue its meetings if the regional administration would not initiate specific meetings by themselves. I think that it was a wise decision to call the hospital district the Northern District, not Karyukivsky district. In many regions, it's like this. In Zhytomyr Oblast, we have Zhytomyr, Korostyn, Berdychev, and some others, where the hospital districts are obvious, while in many districts, in many regions of Ukraine, it's not that obvious. In Balta and Podilsk, for example, in Odessa Oblast, they are very similar, and they had a very furious fight against each other. What will be the center of the hospital district? And we mentioned many times that the hospital district should not be called by the name of geographical point, by a city, by a town, but it should be called by any name. So we encourage the local authorities to involve representatives of the Ministry of Healthcare and the region state administration, consult with this official about regulations, and he or she will provide assistance. Recently, I visited Bila Tserkva, and the hospital council attended hospital council meeting, and people started to discuss the important information, what real services are delivered, what patients go attend which hospital, what equipment is used, what are the most demanded services, etc. And a couple of words about participants of the Hospital Council, about the members of Hospital Council. This is very broadly asked question, and sometimes it raises disputes. The law provides that the local self-government bodies, that is local councils, should be they are the property of, they are the owners of local hospitals. So the local authorities are fully responsible for membership of the hospital council. They should appoint responsible people, experts, there should not be politicians, there should not be members of local government, there should be practitioners, there should be experts, and there should be representatives of civil society, NGOs, patient organizations. They should contribute to the work of hospital council. Actually, the work of the hospital council, it's not political work, it's technical work. People have to check, to double check all the routes, all the roads, all the services delivered by each healthcare institution. That is what we advise to do, but we cannot interfere. I agree with you, but sometimes purely political things, they acquire political coloring or political flavor. But in the context of our today's discussion, I would like to ask you a question that now even representatives of the MENA territorial council may initiate establishment of the hospital council in the region. Yes, that's possible because they have a hospital on their territory. So in those territories where they had no hospital councils by now, they can initiate establishment of such councils. Now, I would like to thank the Deputy Minister for this advice about establishing the hospital council. But everybody knows, and we discussed this with Mr. Ganushak, that behind the hospital districts reform, there is the administrative and territorial reform. In MENA, there is now a big administrative bodies for police or police district and others, and if the hospital district would be created not in MENA but in Karyukivka, then all the other services for population should be relocated in Karyukivka too. I think that we should also calculate the cost of service, and depending on the cost of service, depending on the quality of service, the price of service will be. If the hospital has 2,000 square meters, while other hospital is 4,000 square meters, we should calculate the expenses per 1 square meter. That is, money will follow the patients, and patients will decide which hospital they will attend. Would you please explain, when the hospital districts are mentioned, people in places, they take it in very simple way, that their local hospitals will be removed to some other locations, and nobody discusses the option that this or that hospital could be specialized. the hospitals, all the hospital buildings remain in place. When we are doing the project of hospital districts, we reject from labeling the hospitals. We look at the quality of services, at the amount of services, at the availability of physicians, the availability of equipment. We wish to bring in order the equipment, etc. Let's assume that in Chernihiv Oblast, one district hospital assists in births of 11 babies per year, while in Zhytomyr Oblast they provide a midwife service to 900 women per year. So we have to calculate thoroughly all these figures. I have arguments against the connection between hospital districts and administrative territorial districts. The administrative territorial division is to be established for 1,000 for a long period of years. While hospital districts could be changed in time with the improvement of infrastructure. This is dynamic structure. Administrative division is designed for 50 or 100 years. And if we plan in line with the territorial division, then we will continue with the current situation when there is a hospital and no patients. Mr. Yuri, whether you have heard your answers to your questions, and then we will shift to Q&A session. I would like to thank to Pavlo. I have got some answers, but I have one more question to Deputy Minister about cuts of beds in hospitals, 60 beds per 10,000 of population. This is average European figure. But in Japan, they have 150 beds per 10,000 population. In Switzerland, they have bigger number. That's why physicians, medical staff worry that there will be cuts off in jobs, in medical jobs. And how this figure was chosen, 60 beds per 10,000 of people, while the level of diseases is why we look at Europe, where environment is better. The statement number one. In hospital councils, you should understand that the hospital beds does not provide treatment. There are physicians who provide treatment, and experts should work in hospitals with good equipment. Good equipment should be paid off. It should be loaded. This is what you should keep in mind, not the number of beds. There is surgery on open heart when a patient should stay in a bed for 14 days, but in some other types of heart surgery requires just one day in a hospital. So in order to, the objective is not to provide all the technology. You cannot bring innovative heart surgery to a hospital where there is less than 300 of population covered. And now the questions from email. Yuri, what is the structure of primary healthcare services in your community? We have one physician who serves to the residents of the whole district. Whether in the model that we promote now, and after medical reform launch in September, the money will follow the patients, the potential patients in a community, and thus communities will be able to establish local medical services. Then will you provide further necessary changes to regulations? And the last question, what do you think about communal centers of services which will bring together local physicians and will be supported from financially supported by local communities? I think that's a good idea. This is one of the best ideas. And this idea was developed by local communities. When we heard the question what to do with their medical health care, they wish to have their local community services. Now questions from journalists. Whether there are any questions from journalists.
Good afternoon, Марія. Новий погляд, Переяслав, Хмельницьк TV channel. I have a question to Павло Ковтонюк. First question. Tell us, please. Maybe someone else has a question. Timothy was the first one. Timothy Bodikov, we had a lot of issues because many people address from different regions. They have complaints and there are several questions. In what way the ministry plans to have some preventive mechanisms? As you voiced today that what are the preventive measures in order to implement this? Because there are some cases when they blackmail or they do not finance institutions or they do not pay salaries, and they do everything in order to close this institution. So this should be decided by hospital councils. So in this example, hospital councils was formed, but they did everything to close the institution. And in the provision, we didn't see this preventive mechanism. A lot of responsibilities these councils have, but it is not outlined how it is formed, who are the representatives. So we want to address as a council to the ministry to introduce changes to better regulate these formations, because there are many people in the regions who believe that they can just benefit from this at the top level. So can the hospitals be closed if the council takes such a decision? No, this is forbidden by constitution, but all other decisions can be taken. So this council can only recommend to the owner that in the network that we build together, it would be better for you to take this or that place, but the decision is taken by the owner. The hospital council cannot decide what to do with the hospital because it doesn't belong to them, so the owners should decide. So about financing, this is the question to the owner. So the owner is responsible, but the hospital council can decide to resolve the issues concerning cooperation between the institutions, and also can help with the flow of the patients. And what about preventive mechanism? This is constitution, and the example in the future, starting 2018, money will follow the patient, and the financing of the hospitals. These decisions will be taken by patients, because if a patient goes to the hospital, money will follow him. So it will depend on the patients whether they go to this or that hospital. So this is not the question to these councils. I believe that we have mental archetypes. So some people just want to resolve the issue not at the local level. They want to go to the top level. So we should try to take decisions and implement these decisions locally. So people should be responsible at the primary level, and this, people should be responsible for their activity at the local level. This will be a long way because we didn't do it before, but we should train ourselves on this. So we have several minutes, and please ask your question. Please, the first question about the stages of reform and what period of time it can take. So you're speaking about hospital districts, right? So three big stages. First, forming of hospital districts. Second, forming of hospital councils. And the third is prospective plan of development of hospital districts. So I believe that first and second stage will, and then the second stage will be on the third. And what are the key changes that were envisaged in the course of the reform? So in my foreword, I mentioned it, and in order to save time, maybe I won't do it again. And what about the list of services that will be guaranteed by the state? So this is all included in the documents that were made public. So this is not the topic of this discussion. Pavlo Kovtonyuk presented this information before, so if you have other questions, please ask. Thank you. About the structure of financing, how the funds will be distributed. So the funds will be allocated based on implemented work. To primary doctors, family doctors, money will go for the patients for a year, and for example, for the procedures, for each procedure, and for a hospital, for a case treated, for those work that was really implemented, that was done. If there is no work, there is no money. So about the influence of the Ministry of Healthcare. So the ministry has the influence concerning the state policy. We initiated the creation of hospital districts, and we provided framework requirements to these processes in order that this process was homogeneous throughout the country, to have the network and not to have different systems of healthcare. Each citizen of Ukraine know that in 60 minutes the emergency will bring him to the nearest hospital, and should be proper access to emergency rooms, and also, for example, if a person had a heart attack, so in 1.5 hours they will be able to get a standard to have an operation, and people should know that there is a special network of healthcare, but all the particular issues should be considered at the local level. Ukrenform. You've mentioned in your speech that hospital districts that there will be investment projects in these hospital districts. What you've meant and what investment projects, whether these are local projects or national projects, whether it is decided by the local government. And the second question, you said that hospitals of the second level will get money for the case treated. So it means that there should be identified cost of medical service. Can you comment on this? I will start with second question. Hospitals of any level will get money for treated cases. For this, we should establish tariffs, and they are based on the cost of the service. And this will be done. Now we launched a pilot project with 4 institutions of medical Academy of Sciences, and we calculated tariffs. We started the work in 2 oblasts of Ukraine to how to calculate the cost, and this experience will be shared with other, and we have a plan. And we have a draft law in the Supreme Council that we will have all the cost calculated, and until the end of the year we will have information about these tariffs. Also, the plans of development of hospital districts for 5 years, they will be plans for investment as well. So each investment project will be started based on the situation in the hospital district. So this is equipment, this is repair of roads, and also a regional fund of development should be also used like this. And also there will be a project of development of and this will be based also on this districts. So please be brief. Yuri, I see you, so we will ask. Tatiana Dubinina, I'm a pediatrician. About help to mothers and children, you said that the ministry will form strategic development and to have a program in order to help children and women, because child mortality is on the rise among the children that are under 5. So we have such a program that we now prepare. This is the program on payment that is money goes after the patient. So this is money for a delivery, and we want to calculate this program in such a way that next year we will start this program, maybe in the mid of the next year. This is money for delivery, and this will contribute to the quality of healthcare. So specialized help to children, this is highly specialized help, for example, difficult traumas or some so maybe this cannot be provided by a hospital district. So this is the national level. If these are some pathologies, if we are speaking about neonatology, these can be big districts. So neonatologists should have some practice, and big hospital districts can provide it. So we shouldn't form small districts, because there should be appropriate number of people and to provide service. So I would like to ask about hospital districts, because other issues are also for separate discussions. I often travel to regions and they have hospital councils, and this is rather simple to do this. And what problem appear? They do not have enough regulatory things. They need special requirements for separate nosologists. Otherwise they cannot have a plan of implementation. And the second problem is the problem of the implementation of the decisions of the councils. And if someone is against the decision on the council, so they address the court. So if the second problem, it is really difficult to resolve this problem, because these decisions remain not obligatory to implement. So the first question, I agree that this is really important. Last week, working group on reforming your finance of the ministry adopted the document on framework requirements for emergency hospitals of the first and second level. And in this normative act, they will have requirements to emergency hospitals, and these requirements are framework requirements. So this is everything that is connected with the treatment of 4 major states, and we do not want to regulate everything that is in the hospital. This is the responsibility at local level, but the main services will be regulated. So this is cardiovascular disease, then delivery and traumas and emergency help. So for these things, so concerning equipment, specialists, resultativeness, and what services and of what quality should be provided. So all this will be included, but we should not be too regulated. It should be in priority areas only. So about decisions that are not obligatory to implement. So this body is advisory. So this is not a governmental institution. That's why, to some extent, the weak side of this is that the decisions, they are not obligatory, and the decisions are taken by heads of local government. And in this also we have a plus, so this is not over-regulation. We create a cooperative body that makes decisions by consensus, and then these decisions should be adopted. And also about inter-budget transfers. So when money goes from one hospital to another based on the number of patients who went from one region to another. So provide money to region. If a patient goes to another region, so one region should transfer the money to the other region. And now this money will go there automatically. So as of today, we do not try to regulate the sphere of this transfers, because we do not see prospects here that this is a proper way to finance it. It is difficult, it takes much time, and it has many political risks. It is allowed by legislation, so in those hospital districts where they have such a cooperation, we do not say that they cannot do it, but we do not want to develop this mechanism. And we believe that draft law 6327 be adopted, and in this way this problem will be resolved. Thank you. We thank all the participants. Till the next time, goodbye.